Other impediments are to desire liberation or material nature inflamed by discharging devotional service. Oh, sorry. ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे हे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसति गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. Other impediments are to desire liberation or material name and fame by discharging devotional service, or to neglect the prohibitions. These prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, or meat eating. Indeed, one should not eat anything other than Krishna prasadam, offered food to Krishna. These are the restrictions for one who is attempting to advance in devotional service. If one does not follow these principles strictly, there will be a severe disturbance in discharging devotional service. If one is not particularly careful by watering the plant of devotional service, one will instead nourish the weed described above, which will then grow very luxuriantly and hamper one's progress. The idea is that when one waters a garden, not only the desired plant grow rapidly, but the unwanted plants also grow. If the gardener does not see these weeds and cut them down, they will overcome and choke the plant of devotion. It is the duty of the neophyte devotee to cut down all the weeds that may grow by the watering process of devotional service. If one is careful to guard against the growth of these weeds, the plant of devotion will grow luxuriantly and reach the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan. When the living entity engaged in devotional service relishes the fruit of love of Godhead, he forgets all religious rituals aimed and in aimed at improving his economic condition. He is no longer desired to satisfy his senses, and he no longer desire to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence.
There are many practices leading to spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss, including the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the execution of austerities and pious duties, and the practice of mystic yoga. These all reward different results to their performers, but all these rewards appear to glitter only as long as one is not elevated to the transcendental love service of the Lord. Love of God is dormant in everyone, and it can be awakened from its dormant position by the execution of pure devotional service. Just as a person bitten by a serpent and fallen unconscious can be revived by spelling ammonia. After speaking in this way about pure devotional service, Lord Chaitanya began to describe that service and its symptoms to Rup Goswami. He explained that in pure devotional service, there can be no desire other than desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshipping any demigod or even any other form of Krishna, nor is there room for indulgence in speculative empiric philosophy of fruitive activities. One should be free from all these contaminations. A devotee should accept only those things that are favorable for keeping his body and soul together and should reject those things that increase the demands of the body. Only the bare necessities for bodily maintenance should be accepted. By making one's bodily necessities secondary, one can primarily devote his time to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy names of God. Pure devotional service means engaging all one's senses in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. So we think that our body belongs to a particular society or a particular country or a particular family. In this way, the body is bound by so many designations. Similarly, the senses belong to the body. and when the body is subject to such designations, the senses are also. Thus, one engages the senses on behalf of family, society, nation, and so on. When the senses are so engaged, one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. The senses must be purified, and so on. And this is possible when one purely understands that he belongs to Krishna and that his life belongs to Krishna. In other words, that his identity is to be eternal servant of Krishna. In this way, one can engage his senses in the service of the Lord, and such engagement is called pure devotional service.
A pure devotee accept the transcendental loving service of the Lord, but reject all kinds of liberation for his personal senses gratification. And this is situated by Lord Kapila in Srimad Bhagavatam. In his explanation of the nature of pure devotional service, as soon as a pure devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, his mind at once flow toward the Lord, just as the waters of the Gangas flow down toward the sea. Such spontaneous attraction of the devotee's mind to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead signifies pure devotional service. Devotional service is pure when one engage in the service of the Supreme Lord without any selfish motive and without being hampered by any material impediment. The pure devotee does not desire to live on the same planet as the Supreme Lord, nor does he desire the same opulence as the Lord, nor does he desire to have the same form as the Lord, nor to live with him side by side, nor to merge into his existence. Even if the Lord offers the pure devotee such rewards, he rejects them. The point is that a pure devotee is so much absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord that he has no time to think of any benefit beyond his immediate engagement. Just as an ordinary materialistic businessman thinks of nothing else when he is absorbed in his business, a pure devotee, when engaged in the service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement.
Hare Krishna, Shivangi Mataji, will you read? One who possesses the symptoms described above has been elevated to the topmost position of devotional service, and it is by such transcendental loving service alone that one can surpass the influence of Maya and relish pure love of Godhead. As long as one desires material benefit or liberation, which are called the two witches of allurement, one cannot relish the taste of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. There are three stages of devotional service. The first is the beginning cultivation stage of cultivation. The second is the realization of service, and the third, the supreme stage, is the attainment of love of Godhead. There are 9 different methods of cultivating devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. And all these processes are employed by the neophyte in the first stage. If one is engaged in chanting and hearing with devotion and faith, his material misgivings gradually become vanquished as his faith is in devotional service increases more and more, he becomes assured of a higher perfectional position. In this way, one becomes firmly fixed in devotional service, increases his taste for it, becomes attached to it, and feels ecstasy. The preliminary stage of love of Godhead, attainment of ecstasy, is produced by executing this process of cultivating devotional service. When one continues the process of hearing and chanting, attachment to Krishna gradually thickens and at last is called love of Godhead.
In this stage of transcendental love of Godhead, there are further developments known as transcendental affection, emotion, ecstasy, and extreme and intense attachment. These are technically known by the terms as rag, anurag, bhav, and mahabhav. The processes from the stage to another is like the thickening of sugarcane juice. In the first stage, sugarcane juice is a thin liquid. Then, by evaporation, it becomes thicker and thicker. It turns into molasses. Then it turns into granules of sugar. Then rock candy and so on. Just as sugarcane juice progresses from one stage to another, similarly, transcendental love for the Supreme Lord develops by stages. When one actually becomes situated on a transcendental platform, he becomes steady. Unless one is also one is unless one is so situated, his position is not steady and he may fall down. When one is actually situated transcendentally, there is no fear of falling down. This stage is technically called sthai bhava. There are further developments within the stage known as vibhava, anubhava, sattvika, and vyabhichari. When these four ingredients are added to the steadfast position of a pure transcendental life, there is actually an exchange of rasa or transcendental mellows with the Supreme Lord. This exchange and loving reciprocation between the lover and the beloved is generally called Krishna Bhakti Ras, and transcendental taste of exchanging loving sentiments between the devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It should be noted, however, that the transcendental loving service exchanges transcendental loving, love, transcendental loving exchanges stand on the steadfast position of the Sthai Bhava as explained above. The basic principle of Vibhava is Sthai Bhava, and all other activities are auxiliary for development of transcendental love.
The ecstasy of transcendental love has two components: the context and the cause of the excitement. The context is also divided into two parts: the subject and object. The exchange of devotional service is the subject, and Krishna is the object. His transcendental qualities are the cause of excitement. This means that a devotee who becomes enamored by transcendental qualities of Krishna becomes excited to serve him. The impersonal Mayavadi philosophers say that the absolute truth is nirguna, without qualities. But the Vaishnava philosophers say that the absolute truth is described as nirguna because he has no material qualities. This is not to say that he has no spiritual qualities. Indeed, the Lord's spiritual qualities are so great and so enchanting that even liberated persons become attracted to him. This is explained in Atmaram verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is said that those who are already situated on the platform of self realization are attracted by transcendental qualities of Krishna. This means that Krishna's qualities are not material but are pure and transcendental. The highest stage of ecstasy is characterized by the following 13 transcendental activities: dancing, rolling on the floor, singing, clapping, stretching the body, thundering, yawning, breathing heavily, forgetting social conventions, drooling, laughing, shaking the head, and hiccoughing. All these symptoms are not awakened simultaneously. They appear according to the exchange of transcendental mellows. Sometimes one symptom is predominant. Sometimes some sometimes one symptom is prominent, and at another time another is prominent.
There are five transcendental rasas or mellows. The initial stage is called Santrati, wherein one is liberated from material contamination, appreciates the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who attends this stage does not exactly engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, for this is the natural stage. In the second stage, this is called Dashyarati. A person appreciates his position as being everlastingly subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and he understands that he is eternally dependent on the causeless mercy of the Supreme Person. At that time, there is an awakening the natural affection, such as is felt by a son who grows up and beings to appreciate his father's benediction. At this stage, the loving entity want to serve the Supreme Lord instead of serving Maya illusion. The third stage in the development of transcendental love is called Shakyarati. In this stage, one associates with the Supreme as a friend on an equal level with love and respect. As this stage is further developed, there is joking and such relaxed exchange as laughing. On this level, there are fraternal exchange with the personality of Godhead, and one is free from all bondage. One forgets his inferior position as a living entity, but at the same time, he has the greatest respect for the Supreme Person.
In the fourth stage, called Vatsalya Rati, the fraternal affection of the preceding stage develops into parental affection. At this time, the living entity as the parent of God, instead of acts as a parent of God, instead of worshipping the Lord, the living entity as a parent of the Supreme Person becomes an object of worship for him. At this stage, the Lord depends on the mercy of his pure devotee and puts himself under the control of the devotee to be raised nicely. Such a devotee can embrace the Supreme Lord and even kiss his head. In the fifth stage, called Madhur Rati, there is a transcendental exchange of conjugal love between the lover and the beloved. It is at this stage that Krishna and the damsels of Raja glanced lovingly at one another, for on this platform there is an exchange of glances, movements of eyebrows, pleasant words, attractive smiles, etc. Besides these five primary rasas are seven secondary rasas which consist of laughing, wonder, chivalry, pity, anger, ghastliness, and devastation. For example, Bhishma related to Krishna as a warrior in the chivalrous rasa. Hiranyakashipu, however, experienced an exchange of ghastly and devastating rasas. The five primary rasas constantly remain within the heart of the pure devotee, and the seven secondary rasas sometimes appear and disappear to enrich the flavors and taste of the primary ones. After enriching the primary rasas, they disappear.
Examples of Shanta Bhaktas or devotees in neutral states are the sages known as the nine Yogindras, namely Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayana, Avirodha, Dravida, Chamasa, Kari Bhajana. The four Kumaras, Sanandana, Sanat Kumar, and Sanatan are also examples of this stage. Examples of devotees in second stage servitorship as are Rattaka, uh, Chitraka, and Patraka. These are all servants of Krishna and Goloka. In Dwarka, there is Daruka. In the Vaikuntha planets, there are Hanuman and others. Devotees in the third stage friendship include Sri Dama in Vrindavan and Bhima and Arjuna in Dwarka or on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. As for those elevating to Krishna in parental love, they include his mother, father, uncle, and similar relatives. In conjugal love, there are damsels of Raja, the queen of Dwarka, the goddess of fortune in Vaikuntha. No one can count the number of no one can count the vast numbers of devotees in this rasa. In general, attachment to Krishna is of two kinds. The first kind of attachment with awe and veneration characterized a lack of freedom. Such attachment is exhibited in Mathura and on the Vaikuntha planets. In these abodes of the Lord, the flavor of transcendental loving service is restricted, but in Golok Vrindavan, Love is freely exchanged, and although the cowherd boys and damsels of Vrindavan know that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, they do not show awe and veneration because of the great intimacy of their relationship with Him, though thick and thin. In the five principal transcendental relationships, awe and veneration are sometimes impediments to one's service to the Lord. When there is friendship, parental affection, or conjugal love, such awe and veneration are impediments. For example, when Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, they prayed to the Lord with awe and veneration because they understood that the Supreme Lord Krishna or Vishnu has appeared before them as their child. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Devaki and Vasudeva, knowing their um, knowing their sons to be Supreme Personality of Godhead, begin to pray to him, although he was present before him as their child. Similarly, when Arjuna saw the universal form of Krishna, he was so afraid that he begged pardon for his dealings with Krishna as an intimate friend. As a friend, Arjuna often behaved unceremoniously with the Lord, and upon seeing the awesome universal form, Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, sometimes I insulted you by calling you my dear friend Krishna without knowing the greatness of your inconceivable power. Please forgive me. I was mad to address you like a common friend or common man."
Similarly, Similarly, when Krishna was playing jokes on Rukmani, she feared that he might leave her and become so but perturbed
Yes.
perturbed that she dropped the fan with which she was fanning him and fainted. Her hair scattered as she fell unconscious to the floor, like a mm, like a blatant tree blown down by a blast of wind. But as far as Yashoda, Krishna's mother in Vrindavan, is concerned, Srimad Bhagavatam states, Mother Yashoda thought that the personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by all the Vedas and Upanishads, as well as by Sankhya system of philosophy and all authorized scriptures, had been born from her womb. It is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Mother Yashoda bound the child Krishna with a rope as if he were an ordinary son born out of her body. Another description for Krishnas of being treated as an ordinary person appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:18-24. There it is stated that when Krishna was defeated in games with his friends, the cowherd boys, he had to carry Sridhama on his shoulders.
Regarding the gopis, dealing with Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, Srimad Bhagavatam describes how when Sri Krishna took Srimati Radhika alone from the Rasa dance, the proudly thought she proudly thought, "My dear Lord Krishna has left the other gopis, although they are as beautiful as I am, and he is satisfied with me alone in the forest." She told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I am unable to move anymore. Now, if you like, you can take me whenever you deserve." Krishna replied, "You can climb on my shoulder." But as soon as he said this, disappeared. He disappeared, whereupon Srimati Radhika repented very much. When Krishna disappeared from the scene of the rasa dance, all the gopis began to lament, saying, "Dear Krishna, we have come here and left aside our husbands, sons, relatives, brothers, and friends, neglecting their advice. We have come to you, and you know very well the reason for our coming here. You know that we have come because we are captivated by the sweet sound of your flute, but You are so cunning that in the dead of night you have left girls and women like us. This is not very good of you.
The word Sam means controlling the mind and keeping it being diverted in various ways while fixing it on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, one who is fixed on the Supreme Lord is situated on the Sama platform. On that platform, the devotee understands that Krishna is the basic principle of everything within our experience. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. After many, many births of cultivating knowledge, one who has attained real knowledge surrenders unto Vasudev Krishna because he can understand that Krishna is present in everything, that he is distributed all over the cosmic manifestation. Although everything is under the control of the Supreme Lord and is situated in his energy, everything is nonetheless different from Krishna in his personal form. It is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the platform of Sam, on which one understands that Krishna is the basic principle of everything, is called Shantarati. Unless one is elevated to the platform of Shantarati, one cannot be fixed in knowledge of the greatness of Krishna or the diffusion of his different energies, which are the cause of all manifestations. The same point is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sama equilibrium of mind is achieved by one who has concluded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of everything. And when one can control his senses, that is called Sama. Shama. When one is ready to tolerate all kinds of sufferings to control the senses and keep the mind steady, this is called Titiksha or tolerance. And when one can control the urges of the tongue and genitals, that is called Dritaha. One who has attained Dritaha or is a Dhira and a pacified person. A pacified person is never disturbed by the urges of the tongue and genitals. बस थोड़ा सा बचा है तो हम ये कंप्लीट करके चैप्टर कंप्लीट करके एंड कर देंगे.
One who can fix his mind on Krishna without deviation attains Shantarasa and steadfast fixation in Krishna consciousness. One is in Shantarasa exhibits two main qualities: unflinching faith in Krishna and the cessation of material desires. These specific characteristics of Shantarasa, unflinching faith in Krishna, and cessation of all desires are not connected with Krishna and are common to all other rasas as well. Just as sound is present not only in the sky where it is produced, but also in all the other elements: fire, water, earth. So these two characteristics of Shanta Rasa are also present in Dasya Rasa, servitorship, Sakya Rasa, fraternity, Vatsalya Rasa, parental affection, and Madhurya Rasa, conjugal love. When we speak of desires not connected with Krishna and non-Krishna, this does not mean that anything exists without Krishna. Actually, there cannot be anything non-Krishna because everything is a product of Krishna. Everything is a product of energy of Krishna. Since his energies are identical, everything is Krishna indirectly. For example, consciousness is common to every living entity. But when consciousness is certain, soul, solely on Krishna consciousness, it is pure. And when consciousness is centered on something other than Krishna, or when it is directed to self gratification, it may be called non-Krishna consciousness. Thus it is in the polluted state of that conception of non-Krishna comes in the pure state. However, there is nothing but Krishna consciousness. Mataji, Priyanka is not there, so you can read now.
Active interest in Krishna, the understanding that Krishna is mine and I am Krishna's, and that my business is therefore to satisfy the senses of Krishna, is typical of a higher stage than a naturality of Santarasa. Santarasa. Simply by understanding the greatness of Krishna, one achieve the status of Santarasa, in which the worshipable object may be the impersonal Brahman or Brahman are Paramatma, worship of the impersonal Brahman, and the Paramatma is conducted by those engaged in empiric philosophical speculation and mystic yoga. But when one develops even further in Krishna consciousness or spiritual understanding, he can appreciate that the Paramatma, the super soul, is the eternal worshipable object, the master, and the surrounders unto him. Bahu Bahunam Jananam Ante Jana Jananavam Mam Prapadyate. After many births of worshipping Brahm, Brahman and um, Paramatma, when one surrenders unto Vasudeva as the supreme master and accept himself as the eternal servant of Vasudeva, he becomes a great and transcendentally realized soul. At that the time, due to his intimate relationship with the supreme absolute truth, the devotee begins to render some sort of transcendental loving service to the supreme personality of Godhead. Thus the natural relationship known as Sant Rasa is transformed into Dashrasa service. On the platform of Dashrasa, one exhibit the greatest quantity quantity of veneration for the supreme lord, that is in Dashrasa. One appreciate the greatness of the supreme lord. It should be not noted here that one on the platform of Santarasha there is no spiritual activity, but on the platform of Dashrasa service begins. Thus is Dasarasa in the quality of Santarasa is exhibited, and in additional there is consciousness of the transcendental taste of service.
In Sakya Rasa fraternity, the transcendental qualities of Shantarasa and Dasarasa are certainly present, but beyond there is another quality, confidential attachment, which is pure transcendental love. This confidential attachment for the personality of Godhead is technically called Vishrambha. On the platform of Vishrambha, there is no sense of awe or veneration toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, in the transcendental fraternal relationship, Sakyaras, there are three transcendental characteristics: the sense of greatness, the sense of service, and the sense of intimacy without awe and veneration. The Sakya Rasa adds one transcendental quality to the qualities of Shanta and Dasya Rasa. Similarly, on the platform of parental affection, Vatsalya Rasa, there are four qualities. In addition to these three qualities already mentioned, there is the sense that the Supreme Lord is dependent on the mercy of the devotee. As a parent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee sometimes chastises the Lord and considers himself the Lord's maintainer. This transcendental sense of being maintainer of the Supreme Maintainer is very pleasing to both the devotee and the Supreme Lord. The Lord instructed Srila Rupa Goswami to write the transcendental literature and named Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the science of devotional service, and indicated therein the substance of five transcendental relationships with the Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhur Ras. It is explained in that great literature how the transcendental relationship of Shanta Rasa, taking the shape of unflinching faith in Krishna, is further developed into Dasya Rasa with the spirit of service, then to Sakya Rasa or undeteriorated fraternity, and further to the transcendental platform of parental love, wherein one feels himself to be maintaining the Lord. All these transcendental relationships will culminate on the highest platform, conjugal love, wherein they all exist simultaneously. Hare Krishna.